Howdy. Hi, everybody. Sam Goodman. Really fucking scary stories. Thank you for joining us today. We are coming to you from the sunny and the beautiful, and it's cold and chilly sometimes, downtown Phoenix, Arizona. It's super creepy. It's super crawly. We're coming to you from the Pale Horse Media Co. studios, and I keep promising one of these days I will do a tour. What's really cool about the studios here is that we're talking about upcycling people parts. Well, this is one of those upcycled buildings where it used to be an old National Guard armory that was built like somewhere back in like the freaking 40s or something, and they basically turned it into offices and studio spaces, like art space. So if you're familiar with the Phoenix area, we're down kind of in the arts district of Phoenix. I'm surrounded by like painters and photographers and musicians and tattoo artists, just all kinds of really cool stuff, really cool people. And we fit right in with that crowd. You know, a bunch of rambunctious podcasters who are doing all kinds of really wild podcasts about everything from work and life and the fucking paranormal and true crime stuff. But I say all that to share with you that this place, I'm a skeptic, but like I get here kind of sort of super early. Sometimes I'm here super duper late. Like usually I'm here and it's dark, either dark in the morning or dark at night. And you get here and sometimes if I'm super duper early, I'm usually the only one here, and old buildings make all kinds of wacky fucking noises. And so you walk in and it's got these automatic lights that kick on like as you come through. So it goes boom, 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 like as you're walking through the halls of this old brick building, and you hear scrapes and creaks. And I don't know, I've run the spirit box here a couple times and I've not captured anything. So my skepticism is prevailing at this point. But I just thought I'd share that with you. So maybe we'll have to dig into some research here, because the building was an armory, a National Guard armory for quite a while, and then it went vacant for a while, and then there was like a bunch of homeless people that lived here. It's sad, I get that, but who knows? A lot of times there's some wild and wacky stuff that comes with that, and old buildings, and who knows what's wrong in the halls. I'm thinking it's just old pipes at this point, but we might have to just dig into that. Do me a favor. Head on over to palehorsemedia.co. That's the studio here in that creepy old building that I was just talking about. And check out this podcast. You can check out all of the other ones, such as the Hot Nerd Podcast, where we dive into all things human and organizational performance. We talk a lot about work and safety at work and culture at work and kind of all that good stuff. It's just a well-rounded listen if you are a professional in really anything. And if you want to go check out Hey Y'all, Sam Goodman, that's just me ranting about whatever the fuck I feel like ranting about. It's kind of like this, but with no subject, which that's good for some. That's not good for others. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you hate it. Go check them out. Let me know. Also, if you're looking for a way to show some love, to show some support for this show or any of the others, or Pale Horse Media Co., or anything really, we've got an epic merch store there with high quality t-shirts, high quality hats, all the above. We've got some amazing stuff over there. So if you want to give a little love, give a little support to the podcast, and get something in return, that's a really great way to do it. But the easiest, most effective, and simplest, and free, totally free, other than about 30 seconds of your time, that's the only cost. The easiest way to show us love and support is just by scrolling down, leaving us a review, giving us some stars, writing us a review, and sharing it with your friends, sharing it with your families, sharing it with people you love, the people you hate, whoever. I guess it's according to how much you like the show. If you really hate it, I guess you share it with people that you don't like. But share it with all of them. We're good with it. We like it. We love it. We got to have more of it. That literally helps us keep the lights on around these parts. It allows us to continue to bring you these stories. And last but not least, a really good way to support the show too is just get in contact. Just reach out, just say hey, show us some love through the DMs on all of our social media stuff, or head over to palehorsemedia.co or samugoodman.com and slide into the handy dandy contact form. Send us your paranormal experiences, your brushes with the true crime, anything weird, wacky, or wonky that's happened to you that you think would fit. You can come on, you can share it on the show, or we can tell it for you if you get a little nervous about being on podcast. So with all of that out of the way, we've got all that out of the way now. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about. How about that? We're going to tell a really creepy, crawly tale about 18 people that inexplicably died in their sleep. So if you're anything like me, and I've got a feeling that if you're hanging out here listening to me rant about all things true crime, all things paranormal, you're probably a little bit of a horror junkie. You're probably a little bit of a horror movie nerd. You probably like all the greats and all the ones that are like, who the fuck watches that? Yeah, that's me. That's probably you. But I did not know this. I did not know that Freddy Krueger is actually based on a true tale. And ding, 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 you guessed it. It's on the true tale of 18 people that inexplicably died in their sleep. A lot of horror movies are based on true events, but this one is like extra creepy when you're like, fucking died in their sleep. Death by nightmare. Let me throw that in there. That's kind of where we're going. Death by nightmare. So this infamous story of that really cool striped sweater wearing claw-handed maniac guy was actually based on real events. And that's often the case with a lot of violent horror movies. They're based on like real things that have happened. So apparently the writer-director of this, Wes Craven, as we all know, you should know if you're a horror movie nerd. And let me pause there for a second. Let me just say, like, I like Freddy. Don't get me wrong. Please don't hate on me too much for this, but it's probably one of my more least favorite horror movies. Just not my favorite. I'm more like slasher, zombie kind of stuff. But that side rant aside, the legend goes that Wes Craven basically read this story about a bunch of folks that inexplicably died in their sleep, and that's the story that we're going to tell. That's the story that inspired him to write Nightmare on Elm Street. So in 1977, well over 100 Laos refugees inexplicably died in their sleep. The deaths of these perfectly healthy men have since been attributed to cardiac arrhythmia, but superstitious people still blame an evil spirit that kills you in your sleep. That is something that is very prevalent with, I guess it's Laotian, is that correct? Laotian people? I hope I'm saying that right. My bad if I didn't. It's Mr. King of mispronouncing words over here. But you get the point. But they still attribute that to it. And it's just really, really wacky. They think that this evil spirit kills people in their sleep and appears in the form of a jealous woman. The phenomenon at the time was labeled sudden, unexpected nocturnal death syndrome. SUNS, a term that was coined after healthy men all over the world began dying in their sleep. So if Freddy Krueger gives you fucking nightmares, you probably don't want to be thinking about this evil spirit, because it seems to be like next level, like next level. But in 1977, and I'm trying to pronounce this, Hmong men living in America began mysteriously dying. So the first victim was killed by what they originally called Asian death syndrome. Kind of wacky. But after he died in his sleep in 1977, a social worker that knew him was surprised because he was like an in-shape dude. He was physically active. He was in good health. This dude's death was reported by the LA Times, who went on to cover 20 similar stories over the course of the next 4 years. The victims were primarily men who shared a median age of 33 and who were generally known to be healthy. It was reported that several witnesses heard the victims emit groans or experiencing troubled breathing for a short while before their death. Others have even claimed to have heard the victims speaking of having nightmares in the nights prior to their death. In 1981, 26 Hmong men, most of whom were refugees, died in their sleep, causing the Federal Center for Disease Control to label it SUNS, as we said, sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome. And according to the Orange County Medical Examiner, half of the total deaths of Hmong people during that time period are attributed to SUNS. So that's a lot of fucking people. And as we said, some of these people believe that this death was caused by a malevolent spirit. And I'm going to try their name here, Dab Sum. I'm thinking that's it. Again, any Laotian friends out there that I'm just butchering this, I apologize. Not good with, I'm barely good with English. So let me just throw that out there. But along with many Filipinos, many Hmong people believe in the spirit called Dab Som, and or Dab Sog, who take the form of jealous women and visits men while they sleep. These malicious spirits trap and crush their victims in a manner similar to hallucinations, sometimes experienced by those who suffer from sleep paralysis. And don't you just, I don't like saying those words, because I know when I say them, I know I'm going to experience it, right? You know, when you're like, it's the thing that we do not speak of, because when you say that, you know you're going to be laying in bed tonight and you're going to be like, the only thing you're going to be able to think about is fucking sleep paralysis, and then it's going to happen, right? And that is the worst, right? The worst. You're like half asleep, half awake, you're paralyzed, you can't move, and of course, like your brain brain starts making up noises because you're like half in a dream state. And then like mine is always like some murdery scenario, and I'm like trying to fight to wake up and I can't, and I'm just like helpless. And then all of a sudden, I'm doing that like, like, and then finally my partner will either kick me or my daughter will wake me up and be like, yeah, wake up. Everything's good. Everything's good. But this evil spirit visits people who don't honor their ancestors and the spirits who guard their village. And they're also said to show up if a person performs a ritual poorly. Many men are believed to dress up as women when they go to bed in order to trick the spirits. And the thought here is that these hallucinations might have just scared the victims to death. What? Right? You imagine like really bad sleep paralysis actually killing you? Like, oh, what the fuck? That makes sleep paralysis that much scarier. Some researchers have suggested that the mysterious death may be related to sleep paralysis, which occurs when the mechanism that forces people to refrain from physical activity while sleeping doesn't turn off after an individual wakes up. So there's actually something happening in your body that paralyzes you to keep you from just flopping around like a maniac while you're asleep. So part of you's on, part of you's off. A sleep paralysis victim is fully awake but completely unable to move. To make things worse, many experience scary hallucinations during the paralysis, as we just mentioned. Such as shadow people, or in this case, an old hag who pins their victim down by sitting on their chest and crushes them to death. Does not sound like a good way to go. Scientifically, these are considered to be types of hallucinations left over from a person's dream state. So it's like you're coming out of dreams and you're just getting a little sprinkle of the dream there, but you're half awake, but that paralysis mechanism is still turned on, and it's like bad. It's let's just say it's fucking horrible. Let's just call it fucking horrible. These hallucinations that this spirit brings along are thought to plague people who don't respect their ancestors. As we said, they might have performed a ritual poorly. They might not respect the spirits that guard the village. These people are so terrified of being visited by these evil spirits that they unknowingly willed themselves to die. So it's like the thought of being scared to death by the hallucinations is that, people believe in this stuff so much, and then they suffer some form of sleep paralysis, and their dream state is probably reflecting those really, really, really scary things that they 100%, 110% believe in. And now they're remnants of a dream of that, and now they're in sleep paralysis. And those hallucinations appear, and it scares them so much that they get scared to death. So that can be like a real term. Like, could you imagine quite literally being scared to death because you fear something so much? And of course, your brain makes it come to fruition. It makes it appear, right? By focusing on these intensely negative thoughts, or by intensely focusing on negative thoughts, let me get my words out, one's worst nightmares can eventually come true. It's kind of like that thing, like, if you will it, it will be it. If you will it into existence, right? So people all over the world have died from SUNS. At the time of the 1977 SUNS outbreak, there were only about 35,000 among people living in America, making the amount of people affected by the syndrome seem monumental. However, similarly, mysterious deaths have been common in several Asian countries for years, and many of these victims were not of that heritage. So such deaths have occurred in places such as the Philippines, Thailand, Japan. More than 500 Japanese men were believed to have died of the result of pokuri, and 230 healthy Thai men succumbed to a death during sleep between 1982 and 1990. So these people believe that these are curses and again, spirits that are responsible for these deaths. And they're thought to be responsible, just get this, in the Philippines, deaths of 43 out of 100,000 people every single freaking year. So like they really believe it, and it might be a thing, right? Many of the mysterious deaths in Thailand were attributed to stress brought on by working under harsh conditions for upwards of 13 hours a day, suggesting that the plague is brought on by more than just, genetics and kind of all that stuff. There's probably like some other stuff at play there. But A Nightmare on Elm Street was released in 1984, 3 years after Craven had heard about the mysterious deaths. He had read a newspaper article in the LA Times, and that ultimately inspired the character of Freddy Krueger, who comes for his victims while they sleep. Craven recalled the story of a 21-year-old who was so sure that his nightmares would kill him that he just refused to go to sleep. Concerned for his health, the man's family gave him some sleeping pills, which he promptly threw out. A short time later, he fell asleep, only to begin screaming